Okay, evening everybody. How are we all doing? Hope you're all good. Hope you're all well, and more importantly, hope you can hear and see me. I wanted just a little bit early, but we will wait till 8 o'clock before we start. But hey there, Stuart. Hope you're good. Anything else I really need to do beforehand? I don't think so. So yeah, we will just wait and see. Hey there, Adam. I got to the point where I was just sort of sat at my computer and I thought, you know what, I might as well just hit start. I'll tell you something, hopefully you guys can't hear it, but my neighbour's dog is going crazy right next to my window. Normally I have the window open because it gets pretty hot with the computer and the lights, but I've just had to shut it just because it is, an absolute pain. Anyway, can you all hear me, or am I just talking to myself here? Okay, thanks, Adam. I think today's stream's going to be another one like they always are. I had a clear idea of what I wanted to talk about, and then these last 24 hours, so many different stories have come out that I think are worth talking about. So we've got definitely a lot to pack into this. I also have a little bit of a random request. If you haven't already, I genuinely don't really care about the subscriber numbers on this channel. It's not a main channel account. It's not something that I do for a living. But obviously, it's how I communicate with you guys. I go away for the next couple of weeks. And one of the weeks I was going to be out there, I was going to do a live stream. I was going to use my mobile, just do a live stream kind of thing. But you can need 50, you do need 50 subscribers to be able to do that. I can kind of understand why YouTube do it, so that every man and his dog doesn't just hit live. But I'm at 47 at the moment. So if any of you haven't subscribed to this channel and are able to, if you can just hit that, I just need to hit 50, and then my plans for 2 weeks' time are going to be in perfect order. If you already have, then don't worry about it. I will find another way. But yeah. Yeah, it's a delicate one putting it in Discord without going into too much discussion. And time doesn't really like sort of me advertise anything like that, which is why I never post any of my Twitter stuff or anything like that. So I just try and keep it separate because it isn't an RT channel. This is technically my channel. So, but anyway, right. Let us get started. Make sure everything's looking okay. All right, I'm going to just pretend that the last 3 minutes haven't happened, and we'll start from scratch from there. And the recording will be from now. Evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Really busy discussion today. I wanted to sort of focus talking about some regulations that have been approved within the United States, or certainly moving forward, and maybe some global concerns. But actually, there's so much other news that has happened in the last 3 or 4 days that the news section is going to be pretty heavy. I will try and make it as light as possible, and I won't go into every depth of reading every word. More just sort of give you the breakdown, the TDLR or whatever it is, TLDR even, and then you can read the articles afterwards. We do have a research token today. We're going to talk about Immutable X, which I know I promised last week, but we delayed it, so we're going to go through that. Then we'll have a look at some of the charts, have a look at where we are. We had the end of month last week. We're in the summer, halvening, all that kind of stuff coming up. Plenty to talk about. Also, the price action today has been quite interesting as well. So we'll see how all of that plays forward. So we might as well just dive straight in. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And let's just change screens and we'll go straight to it. Okay. So charts everyone's seen today. Bitcoin. I mean, you give this, let's just move this one up. We are going to talk about Bitcoin later, as we always do. If I just put this on the hourly chart, when I started pulling this together, Bitcoin's price was, sub 29,000. But actually, in the last hour, granted, this green candle you can see here is only 2 minutes old, but this last hour, we've had a hell of an increase up. And so Bitcoin's, we will explore what the price action is currently doing there, but we had lost 29,000. We were in the 28,000s, wondering whether or not we were going to go lower, or has this just actually been a bear trap to try and squeeze some extra liquidity and liquidation points out of people before the market moves the other way? We will explore that a bit later on, but it's interesting to see Bitcoin's finally doing something on a smaller scale. When we zoom out a little bit later, you'll probably see that it's not really done much different, but we'll explore that. The one thing that I am quite interested in, though, is the dollar index. Again, bringing this up. I wouldn't say we were writing it off, but a couple of weeks ago when the dollar broke some pretty fantastic fashion, the 100 floor, you would be forgiven for believing that it was going to continue to drop. But actually, it kind of found a bit of a flaw there. And now what we're seeing is an incredible bounce back up. And it is looking very much like a V reversal. And these are daily candles here. That's climbing all back up. And so, we should, if we were, thinking that the markets are inversely correlated like this, seeing the S&P and some of the other stock markets and crypto, the risk on assets, actually declining over the same period. But it's not necessarily the case. I mean, the S&P 500 still remaining pretty bullish, still climbing upwards, still continuing. I was going to say to make all-time highs. That's not quite the case. I think it is, just yearly highs. When I say yearly, I mean we haven't been this high since March 2022. So, almost 18-month highs. Nothing on the radar to suggest that we might actually collapse from here. But what is interesting, and most of you do know, I follow a few YouTubers. One of my favorites is Alessio Ostini. He literally just put a video out about 15 minutes ago, which luckily I had enough time to watch. And he was talking about dumb money on the stock markets. And I took a screenshot of the chart he used, which I'll bring up now. And what is in the dumb money sentiment. And he was saying, actually, look, and if you can see where he circled it, we have crossed the 100 threshold. Now, this is dumb money. And so retail, effectively, are getting super excited at the moment. He's a bit of a contrarian. And to be fair, we kind of feel that contrarian nature that when retail gets super excited, and certainly when they cross this 100 threshold, it usually means there's some form of reversal on the card. Now, to be fair, and please do go and watch his video, but to be fair, he does suggest that he doesn't think this will be a long-term reversal in trend, but he is expecting over the short term, maybe over the next 3 to 4 weeks, maybe sort of 6 weeks into middle of September, some sort of correction on the S&P. Whether or not that plays out on Bitcoin and crypto markets as well, but it's certainly something to have a look at. At the moment, retail is feeling very confident in the stock market. That's not a surprise given that inflation is continuing to fall. Yes, we have had a few increases in interest rates, but the talk at the moment is just about stabilizing and pausing, and I think that is going to play into effect. But this is certainly something that we will continue to look at. I used to pay for a subscription where I could have a look at the smart money and dumb money. I've stopped doing that now, so unfortunately I don't really have access to up-to-date charts on these, but when I can, I'll try and bring it to your attention. But for the contrarians out there, if retail is super excited and super bullish at the moment, perhaps that's a moment to just take stock of where we are. Close that down. But the S&P has continued to defy, maybe not defy logic, but if you had gone back to the beginning of the year when we were, right down in the lows of 3,600 and suggest within 9 months we were going to be at 4,600, I think people would have laughed at you. But that's where we find ourselves. Again, we'll have a look at cryptos later, but there's an interesting candle there. Still got 5 hours left of it, so no need to get too excited, but that's a hell of a tail, not much of a body. So potentially we might be getting some indication. Sorry, I was just looking at my phone. One of the other things that I just want to quickly touch on, if you remember end of May, beginning of June, feels like a lifetime ago, but the US was about to run out of money, and we needed, I was going to call it Parliament, bloody hell. We needed Congress or the Senate, I don't know which one it was, to raise the debt ceiling. And they did. Well, they suspended the debt ceiling. And that was at 31.4 trillion. So cast your mind back. We're talking about 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago, 31.4 trillion. You look at the US debt clock now, 32.6, nearly 32.7 trillion. So in the space of 8 weeks, we've added 1.3 trillion. 1.3 trillion to the US national debt, which is just unbelievable, really. Maybe that's why we're seeing such an uptick in the S&P. But these guys are spending money like they just don't care anymore. And so, as I said, we didn't get a new level for the debt ceiling. It's just suspended. We're going to have to find out what that's going to be. But at the moment, we are spending, I say we, the royal we, they are spending like it is a blank check, which we kind of all know that it is. But yeah, just thought that was interesting as well. If you've not seen this website, usdebtclock.org, obviously it's just a a computer generated simulation of where it's going, but it gives you a sort of a rough idea of it. And just, this is where you're interested, top left. I mean, all of these different elements within it, but the US national debt, if you can't be bothered looking at much else, is what you want to be looking at. Okay, just close that one down. Let's get into some of the news. As I say, I'm going to skip over this as best as I can. One of the funniest stories that came out this week was from Brian Armstrong, who was talking to a reporter about the SEC and about the suit that came from them and the advice they got prior to that. And what was amazing was the SEC had the gall, I suppose, the balls, whatever you want to say, to request that Coinbase actually delist absolutely every cryptocurrency with the exception of Bitcoin, because they claimed that all all cryptos except for Bitcoin are need to be classed as securities and they wouldn't be registered. Now, the reason I say the gall of this, we know that the SEC has been pushing this narrative. We've seen the amount of lawsuits have come out. We've also seen the findings in the Ripple case, which we're not going to explore again today. But bearing in mind that the Coinbase, is listed, okay? It had an IPO. That IPO had to be approved by the SEC. How did the SEC come to the conclusion of what Coinbase's business was? They must have known that the way that Coinbase makes money is by the buying and selling of cryptocurrencies apart from Bitcoin. And so if they were fine with it to launch the IPO, why are they suddenly coming about and having that problem here? This is kind of what the argument's about. This is why Gary Gensler and the SEC have been a little bit of a laughingstock again in the comments in the space. But yeah, an interesting article. Please do have a read of it. This one I wanted to touch on, but again, we just don't have time. But for those of you that aren't aware, prosecutors have had to drop another charge against Sam Bankman-Fried. So they have now dropped, let me just make sure I've got the right one. It's the campaign finance charge. Federal prosecutors have dropped the campaign finance charge against Sam Bankman-Fried. Why is this one in the news more than any of the other ones that have been dropped? Well, I think it's probably the tongue-in-cheek nature of the fact that Sam Bankman-Fried has confirmed that over his time as the CEO of FTX, he donated somewhere in the region of $93 million to campaign finances across both parties, but I think predominantly towards the Democrats, although don't quote me on that one. And it just goes to show that if you pay the people that make the laws enough, they will take as many of your problems away as they can. Now, he still has around about 10 other charges that he's facing, which is, wire and security fraud charges. So, we're not talking about him getting scot-free. But this one here was a fairly serious, they all are serious, but a fairly serious charge, which has just quietly been dropped. Now, I can't remember if I read it. Yeah, I did. So the government has been informed that the Bahamas notified the United States earlier today that the Bahamas did not intend to extradite the defendant on the campaign contributions counts. So effectively here, what they're saying is that when the Bahamas and the United States agreed the extradition of SBF, this charge wasn't part of it. And so what they're effectively saying in layman terms, I understand it, is that the Bahamas government, I don't know what the term of the citizens would be, didn't effectively give permission for him to be charged that way, and they would have needed to have included that within the extradition agreement that was signed. Whether or not this is just a bit of a let's just pull some excuse out of the bag to get it off it, we'll never know, but that is the reason that has been given. So unfortunately, that's where we sit with that one. Again, I'll post this one in there. Can't spend too much time running through it. Another one for all of us, stablecoin FUD concerned people. Tether has shown that they have got some brass behind them for once. So end of Q2 financial reports been come out from Tether, and actually what that's showing, and it's been audited by, I think it's BDO, it's not like a Mickey Mouse crypto firm here, fairly decent accounting firm, but Tether's excess reserves are up to 3.3 billion, and it actually holds $72.5 billion worth of US Treasury bills. They have some investments in some energy related companies or projects as well. And you can go through this. There is a breakdown. I've not bothered bringing it up because we're not going to go there, but we always wondered where Tether's money is and where it's attributed. Again, not 100% of it is accounted for. There's some I don't know, smoke and mirrors that are hiding some of it, but we are starting to see that not only are they proving where some of their money is, but actually they are making bank quarter on quarter. So I'm not saying that Tether, is completely safe or anything like that, but I know, Tether gets as much FUD as Bitcoin does, and probably as much as Binance does these days. And we have noticed people in the past panic and moving from stablecoin to stablecoin. I'm trying to wonder where we settle in. All of my stablecoins at the moment are now in Tether. They've been in Tether for a while. News like this just at least gives me a little bit more comfort that we're probably backing the right horse at the moment. So yeah, what I'll do is when I post this one in Discord, I will get the screenshot of the breakdown of all of their reserves, so you don't have to filter through it yourself, and you can just have a look to satisfy any concerns you may have. I was reading this one just a second ago. One other story that sort of broke over the weekend, Curve Finance. For those of you that have been in the group long enough, you may have heard us talk about Curve Finance. I don't think we've ever actively encouraged people to use it, but certainly back in the DAO days and all that kind of stuff, I know that they were talked about quite extensively. However, they have had an exploit and a hack, and around about 47 million was taken at the time. So several of the stable pools from Curve Finance that use Viper were exploited, and it gives you the different versions of Viper in which the exploit happened. Won't bother going necessarily through that. I think they've just summed it up here. A number of stable pools, and then it is AL ETH, MS ETH, and P ETH. I'll be honest, I don't use Curve Finance. I don't know what each of those breakdowns actually are. Using Viper 0.2.15 have been exploited as a result of a malfunctioning re-entrancy lock. We're assessing the situation and we'll update the community as things develop. I actually went onto the website. In fact, can we just go onto the website now? The last time I checked the note was the following pools have been exploited. Please click on the postmortem link, and then you can have a look through here. Again, I'll post this. I don't know if anyone is involved, but I'm sure you'll be more aware of this than I am. But I will post this through there, and it goes through exactly what had happened and why it had happened. Now, why am I talking about this? Why do we necessarily care? Exploits and rugs and all that happen all the time. I've not talked about it now, but there was another rug called Bard. It was a meme coin that got rugged off Coinbase's network called Base. That was around about 100 million, where it was valued at one stage at 100 million. It was taken. That happened on the same day as what we're talking about here. These kind of things happen all the time. Where the concern actually lies is in the next story. And it's this one. Oops, what am I doing here? It's Curve's Finance founder. So Michael Egorov, allegedly has a total of $100 million worth of debt. So he's taken out a loan of that, backed by 400 million CRV tokens. Now, what's the issue with that there? Well, obviously, the news of a hack of Curve Finance is going to have an impact on the CRV, or the Curve DAO, as it is, token. And that price is going to drop. And as we'll explore in a moment, he has obviously taken out a loan backed by a certain amount of CRV tokens, which to the lender that he went with would have had a certain value. If that value drops to a certain stage, he could actually be called to make the payment. He could be liquidated. Then there's a question of how does that come about? Covering the debt. The lender going to have to sell $400 million worth of Curve onto the market to try and recover whatever they can? And where does that take the whole protocol as it stands? So let's just make sure I've got some of those figures right here. But yeah, those are crypto research, and this is a beautiful thing about, I say this probably every other week, about the blockchain technologies. We can view all this. We know who it is. You can't necessarily hide everything. But yeah, so what does it say here? Down here, according to the research firms, over down on this paragraph, Egorov has around $100 million in loans across various lending protocols, backed by 427.5 million CRV. CRV price at the time dropped 10%. So I think it went from about 80. Actually, I think at one stage it went down to 61 cents, but it went from 80 down to about 61. Here, it says here, CRV traded at 59.75. But it goes on to say that on Aave, Igorov has 305 million CRV backing a $63 million Tether loan. At a liquidation threshold of 55%, the position is eligible to be liquidated at 37 cents. At the time of writing, it was at 59. So let's have a look. Where did we get to? I mean, now we're at 61, so it's just climbed slightly up. But we did drop down today, but only down to 48. The white line here is where it could happen. So, you know, fair enough. Maybe he's not out of the woods yet. We've got further falling. We don't know. But he needs to be thinking about how he can either, pay back that loan. Sorry, my microphone just rolled away from me. Or, and it still is, that could be embarrassing for the rest of this talk. Or how he can reduce his liquidation point further. But there's something else in that someone put it on Discord. It's TL. I'm not sure what your real name is. I don't think you watch these live. I think you're based in New Zealand, Australia, or somewhere. But he posted a screenshot from Twitter, which actually got me thinking as well about this. So just go back to that story. So Michael Igorov has 427 million CRV token. So, okay, well, what's the circulating supply at the moment? This is one individual, I might add. So the circulating supply is 883 million. So he's got pretty much 50% of the circulating supply. So that one sends alarm bells immediately. One individual, the founder, has half of the circulating supply. And not only that, he has half the circulating supply tied up in a loan. So he doesn't even control that anymore. But two, that got me thinking even further. What's the tokenomics of this token? And how can we understand where it is? So I'm going to try, oh no, sorry, it's not this, not that. So I open up the white paper. The white paper is utterly useless in explaining the tokenomics and the distribution. Sadly, yeah, there's lots of charts and equations and all of that, but for what I needed to understand it, there's not necessarily much there. So I'll be honest, I've had to rely on an article from Medium. I just scroll down to the tokenomics side of things. Circulating supply started off at 0, which means that there was no pre-mine of CRV for the team or investors. The max supply of CRV will be 3.03 billion, and it will take until August of 2026 before the final CRV token is available to enter the circulating supply. The total token supply will be distributed as such. So we've got 62%, which, you know, is going to be, God, I need to do some quick maths here. 1.8 billion to the community liquidity providers, 30% to shareholders. So we're looking at just under $1 billion, and then 3 and 5%. So the question I've got, bearing in mind where we are on this chart, is how's he got 427 million? Because what we're saying that he's the shareholders and the team and investors, so he just gets 50% of that, because we don't have a full breakdown there. Or is it that he's been buying that en masse? And actually, then the question really becomes, going back to this, is this circulating supply correct? Because we know the max supply is 3.3. Is the total supply at this moment, currently 1.9, that's what's out there, but of it, the circulating, what is on exchanges and what is for retail, etc. And is the the difference, the 11 or the 1.1 billion CRV, difference in the circulating total supply, is he taking his portion from that? And again, then, well, how has he got access to that, if that's the question? Because there should be a lockup within 2 to 4 years. Now, it could have unlocked some of it. We don't know the breakdown, so maybe that's where it stands. But it just, for me, this is why I don't get excited about DeFi protocols, because it just, most of the problems that are encountered, the exploits, are always on DeFi. We have no idea about what the ownership structure is. They come around with limited information, and most of them just go and, to be honest, piss it away in one form or another. And this seems to be an absolute another case of it. Now, whether or not CRV will ever recover from this, I think will totally depend on the price of it over the next few days and weeks, and whether or not this loan gets called into repayment and it gets liquidated. If that gets liquidated, the price is going to fall, but also there's going to be a significant lack of trust there. But for me, alarm bells should be ringing that one person can put such a large percentage of, if the circulating supply is 800 million, almost 50%, if it's 1.9 billion, then he's still doing around about 20% of the circulating supply. And I can't believe he's given every last CRV that he owns into that loan. I mean, he could. We don't know the details of it. But yeah, for me, this is just a pretty big red flag. Something that I'd definitely be concerned about. Right. I could dwell on this a bit further, but unfortunately, there's even more to go on to talk about. Hex and Richard Hart. So the timing on this one was perfect, really. Sorry, let me just grab a drink. So we only talked about Hex and about Pulse Chain a couple of weeks ago. And yesterday, the SEC filed a complaint against Richard Hart and the three entities that he's involved with, being Hex, Pulse Chain, and I can't remember the final one, Pulse X, that was it. But allegedly offering unregistered securities. Now, I might as well just dive into this straight away and just say, I didn't get particularly too excited about that initially because I don't really agree with the SEC's understanding of what is an unregistered security. As a matter of fact, if they're going against the Hex founder for offering unregistered securities, part of me wanted to just automatically side with him because Gary Gensler and his band of merry men, in my opinion, don't have the correct understanding of it. And that being the case, Hex may not actually form a security. Now, I don't want to break it down into the Ripple case, but very clearly within the Ripple case, the actual individual asset itself, XRP, was classed as not a security. It was clear. It was how that asset, what vehicle that asset was being shilled or passed on to potential customers, which is where the issue potentially lies. So, and that's why the SEC lost on the vast majority of their cases. So if that being the case, it could very well be that Hex and Pulse Chain and all of the others aren't classed as securities, and so this is just a bit of a damn squid. But he's not just been sued for offering unregistered securities, and then that to me is the key. Matter of fact, let's just skip over. So this is the press release that was sent out, and then this is the accompanying actual complaint, which we're not going to go through word for word, but we'll certainly have a look at it. So the SEC is also, so there is the Section 5 issue and the unregistered offering of securities. So that's the main hooks of that. But there's this part. The SEC has also charged Hart and Pulse Chains with fraud for misappropriating at least $12 million of offering proceeds to purchase luxury goods such as sports cars, watches. And then do you remember us talking about that diamond, the Enigma? Well, allegedly that as well. So that's the big one. It's not just the securities issue. He's actually being charged for fraud as well. So using those funds directly to go and buy himself his lifestyle. And for any of you that have actually looked on his Twitter account or followed him in any sort of socials, he's one of those idiots, I'm sorry to say, that likes to just show off all that kind of stuff. And where did he get those funds from in the first place? Now, the SEC is alleging that he got those funds, misappropriate them from people that had provided funds for Pulse Chain and Hex and all of the others. And actually, this case started all the way back in November. So the SEC was starting to issue subpoenas to influencers promoting Hex and Pulse Chain so they could get an understanding of what their involvement was within it and then what's happening with the funds. Now, at the time that this came out, I wasn't really paying too much attention to this. This is right at the height of the market. I don't think anyone was, and it wasn't something I was following. But the fact that I dug into this story today, you can see that there's about 9 months worth of work that's gone into where this is going. I'll post this in here for anyone that's interested, and for anyone that was interested in getting involved in Hex and Pulse Chain and still weren't put off by what I said about it last week or the week before. Please at least read the summary here. You'll get a flavor for at least what the SEC is alleging they can prove towards some of the issues that are going forward. But I'm trying to scroll down to see where it is, because so this is it. So from paragraph 7 onwards, and then it's section 10 rather than section 5 that they're doing him on. The section 5 is the unregistered securities, which we've come to know and love just from all the other times the SEC have used that section against people. So yeah, we shall see how this one plays out. Now, Richard Hart being Richard Hart. This is just all of it. This is the guy, if you haven't seen him before. It's just reload. This is him leaving Louis Vuitton. So you saw what I mean. He's pretty flash with what he does. He went online and did some, here it is. He basically called out Gary Gensler in the SEC, basically saying, you guys are the ones that are in the wrong here. I did more to protect people from FTX and all these other ones that imploded last year by telling them to not get involved. So how dare you come at me and how dare you have a go, etc., etc. So he seems to be going pretty much on the offensive right now. But that just strikes me as the kind of character that he is. So yeah, we shall see how this one plays out. What is interesting from this though, and there's multiple reports that are coming out, over the last hour or two, is that they now believe that the SEC is changing tact and they were actually going to be targeting individual crypto personalities like Richard Hart for what they have deemed to be, promoting unregistered securities. So it's not just this Twitter account. There's a few others that have been thinking. I've not seen any actual press release to suggest that's what's coming. But it's interesting, we've gone years with people shilling tokens, people, pump and dump schemes, very blatant sort of mismanagement of their followers' expectations, etc. And now maybe they are coming for these individuals. It'll be interesting to see. You've got BitBoy Crypto here. This is a media kit that he sent out accidentally to a whole host of email addresses. So it's fairly accurate. But he talks about sort of like his prices and his reviews. Actually, I think this is only part of it because there's one. He didn't use the word shill, but for like an obscene amount of money, he will talk very favorably about your project for a certain number of minutes over a certain number of YouTube videos. Anyway, certainly if this is true and the SEC has identified some individuals, maybe we're going to see sort of a change of how these personalities and these influencers are going to have to behave. Now, this is probably well over a year ago, but it was clear that a judge did state very clearly that just stating this is not financial advice on the front of your videos does not constitute your defense, or sorry, does not give you the defense that you are not providing financial advice. And there was a bit of a furore about, what crypto influencers were going to do at that time, but then, just became yesterday's news and people moved on. Whether or not this is now going to come back to bite people. But the SEC have obviously decided they're going to up their game. They're going to go after influencers. Whether or not this is really going to impact the price of anything, I don't necessarily know. I think people have become pretty sanitized to SEC cases at the moment. But yeah, it may change the landscape, at least that we sort of find ourselves in. And sort of seeing these influencers trying to push those projects. Right, almost finished the news. 30 minutes. So some of the pro crypto regulations that I wanted to talk about that I thought I was going to spend certainly more time going through, which unfortunately, I'm not going to now. These are in early stages. I'm sure we're going to be able to talk about them a lot more. But two crypto bills were, I want to say, passed. I don't know if they have actually got through all the necessary steps to, become law or regulation, whatever the term is in America. But the first one that came out was a Financial Innovation and Technology, or dubbed FIT, for the 21st century, as you can see here. That has been passed out of the US House of Agricultural Committee, and let's go into it. So tax was persuasive in the United States House of Representatives Agricultural Committee consideration of the FIT for the 21st Century Act on the July 27, with many references of bipartisanship and self-congratulatory mentions of members, cooperation and hard work. The committee plowed through a series of amendments calmly and quickly. So instead of people fighting this, they were all like patting each other on the back and well done guys, we've done this very well, let's just get it it was co-written, as it says here, by a Republican. Does it say? I thought it was bipartisan. It's now both parties, but ranking member Dave Scott introduced the Democrats' concerns, claimed consumer protections need to be strengthened in the bill. It does not provide for a third-party auditing. Okay. The bipartisanship took a while to show through as Republican Almeida Adams called the bill a fast track for investment confusion. Her amendment to guarantee diversity on the boards of market participation was later voted down. Provisional registration measures evoked comments from several legislators. Eventually, an amendment proposed by how do you say that? Yadira? I don't know. To require provisional registered parties to belong to a future trade association was passed. The proposed purpose of providing some oversight of them while regulations were being worked out. That was a tongue twister for me there. I really struggled with that one. But spit it out. The crypto community has vocally supported the bill, and Crypto Council for Innovation praised the committee's passage of the bill in the sector. It's a significant marker to show keeping the status quo is not an option. There's too much at risk for consumers, and the US competitiveness and national security has taken a back seat. So Warren added the definition of digital asset trading system should be narrowed, and the new exclusion category to the definition of digital asset included in section 101, and the restrictions on mixed digital asset transactions further clarified. So there's a bit of work to be done, but it's moving in the right direction. And what we saw in the first 6 months of this year with choke point 2.0 and just every man and his dog just trying to stifle any sort of progress within the United States regulatory bodies for cryptocurrencies, we're starting to at least see that there is some chinks in the armor, some light at the end of the tunnel, whatever saying you want to throw in there that we might be getting towards it. But this was just one of two bills. So there was another US Senate approval approving the National Defense Bill that also targets crypto mixers. The United States Senate passed the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. The bill includes a provision targeting crypto mixers, anonymity enhancing coins, and institutions engaged in crypto trading. Seems pretty obvious that Democrats have abandoned any stablecoin bill in favor of sneaking through a provision of the NDAA must pass bill. Anyone want to guess? Oh, sorry, I thought this was a quote for them. This is just some random person on Twitter. So more specifically, the amendment requires establishing examination standards for crypto. So again, maybe we'll actually get some regulatory clarity in this space. This would help assess risks and ensure that businesses comply with related sanctions and money laundering laws. I think this is something that most crypto companies that are based in the United States have been crying out for and looking for that kind of guidance, rather than just waiting to be slapped with some sort of lawsuit from one of the entities telling them that they did something wrong, but not going into any details of what it potentially is that they did wrong. Again, still more work to be done. The bill itself was more targeting, as it says here, these mixer kind of companies like Tornado Cash, and Tornado Cash, that's got a lot of press in terms of, throwing around how dangerous crypto can be because, it's no longer fully traceable on the blockchain and everything else. And so they're trying to stifle that. But in doing that, hopefully they will have to provide the clarity that we so desperately need. I say we, the United States at least. Okay. A couple of the other things that I'm not going to go into talking about, but a couple of other global regulatory frameworks that were approved and being discussed back in July. And this is the big one. So the FSB, which I did remember what it was, and I've totally forgotten now. Did I Google it here? No, that's BIS. Where is the SFB? Can't remember what it stands for now. Here we go. The Financial Stability Board. There you go. So the SFB have produced a paper outlining regulatory frameworks for cryptocurrency assets. They've also done another paper which is specifically at stablecoins. Why is this important? Why are we talking about why should we be concerned? Well, the SFB works for the BIS. If you've never heard who the BIS are, again, so that is the Bank of International Settlements. I want to make sure I got that right. Effectively, they are the bank for centralized banks. So for all centralized banks in the world, they're like the authority or the place of regulatory guidance for them. And we know that central banks are not necessarily a fan of cryptocurrencies, and they're certainly not a fan of stablecoins, because let's face it, central banks want people to use fiat currency so they can continue making the obscene amount of monies that they do. Well, the FSB reports to the G20 nations. Okay, so this is why some regulations that they may be putting forward could have a worldwide impact on us, because the G20 nations, nations that we're all part of, we've got Britain, we've got the United States in there as well. And so if this suddenly becomes pushed down from the BIS to other central banks, which then obviously, you've got to put your tinfoil hats on, but I don't think you have to wear it too tight these days. We know these agencies, these institutions kind of drive political agendas. And if that's going to necessarily be the case, then we could see some very tough regulations coming in for cryptocurrencies. Now, it's not a particularly long document, so by all means, if you get a chance, please do have a read of it. There's a couple of final recommendations within here. So regulatory powers we can imagine about. There's also going to be they're going to be, I was going to use the word bipartisan, that's not what I wanted to say, global, international, borderless kind of regulations that will give oversight and clarity as to how laws and regulations should be introduced. Cross-border cooperation, governance, risk management, data collection and recording, disclosures, etc., etc. I think they've got some pretty big hurdles to overcome, particularly around the cross-border cooperation. A lot of these G20 countries, maybe in the G20, doesn't necessarily mean that they get on with each other all the time. So, bit of work to do, but again, some very interesting regulations, much higher level, that are being brought out. Now, I think they're going to sit again around about October of this year. I don't know whether or not that's going to be finalized, but they met in last October. They did a public consultation, and then this was effectively producing the findings of that. Say, we didn't come out yesterday. This was the middle of July. It came out. Seen an appropriate time to kind of go over where it's at. So, and we have a look at countries like India, which are very flavor of the month, but certainly very anti crypto at the moment. I don't know how it works, but are they like the chair of the G20 at the moment? I think they might be. So whether or not they're going to help to be able to push this narrative to other G20 nations, and then that gets driven down and filtered through, we'll have to wait and see. But unfortunately, it's coming at a time where most countries haven't finalized regulation, but are contemplating and taking consultations to develop regulation. So the timing of it seems pretty impressive for this. Anyway, just definitely something to have a look at. I think that's kind of everything for the news. I've either stunned everyone to silence, or you can't hear me anymore, because I don't think there's been a single comment made in the last 30 minutes. I watched a video from BitBoy earlier fighting Richard Hart's corner. Yeah, Ryan, he so I saw that video as well. If you just go back to wherever those Twitter ones were, scroll up. It's this one. So he was doing a live show where someone talked about it, and he was like basically saying, "I stand by Richard Hart." I don't like BitBoy. He's obviously nervous as well because he's been shilling a load of tokens. But his argument there is very much that the SEC don't know what they're talking about when it comes to securities. So, we shouldn't be jumping on the back of Richard Hart, because by doing that, it means that we believe the SEC know what they're talking about with securities. I understand that logic. I'm not necessarily bothered about Section 5. That will be whatever it will be. I know he did push it very hard marketing-wise. I think this video here is quite an old one of him pushing it very hard and how crazy the price is going to pump and everything else. But from what we can understand from the Ripple findings, it's not the underlying asset that is the issue. Certainly with XRP and Ripple's case, it's how the company, such as Ripple or Hex or Pulse Chain or Richard Hart, promote that. And that's what we've got to understand and see. But yeah, I'm more looking at the fraud claims. Anyway, okay, people are still here, thankfully. Mr. Tacos, I think, put a fox in that. I'm not sure. Right, let's take a break from the news before we dive into the Bitcoin chart. Let's have a sip of water, and then we'll have a chat about Immutable X. Let's just close that down. Let's just open this one up. Let's get my notes up. I am definitely sticking to my notes today because we don't have time to mess around. So Immutable X, this was one of the research tokens from a couple of weeks back. I didn't talk about it last week because I got sidetracked. I can't remember why. But I wanted to talk about it now. It's a token that I've heard of in the past. It's one that I have come across because of my interest in NFTs and in the gaming sector. But like what we do with all of our research tokens, we'll go through what it is, how it claims to do what it does, you know, the tokenomics, the team behind it, and all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the most important things that we always try and identify, whether it be at the beginning or at the end of these research sessions, has got to be, is there a problem that this is now solving? And, you know, that's the same for any token that we come across. And I kind of get the feeling, you know, I've had a few research tokens recently that I've done the research for, and it's been a no for me, because I don't feel like it was really solving a problem that was necessarily need to be there. They just made a problem so they could have the token. And some of the previous ones, yes, the product and the project was good, but whether or not they actually needed a token, you know, could be called into question. I think, you know, you could argue that a lot with a lot of altcoins out there. But anyway, what is Immutable X and what is the problem that they're necessarily trying to solve? So for any of you that have bought, that are interested in NFTs, the chances are that you have either looked to buy or have purchased an NFT on the Ethereum network. And if you've done that, particularly during a bull run, when you will have had this problem where gas fees are utterly ridiculous, and so it feels like you've been spanked doubly for this. Transactions just, you know, they get so overwhelmed they become incredibly slow, or worse still, they fail. And what's annoying about when these transactions fail is you've already paid the gas fee and you don't get that back, so you have to do it a second time. And so actually it's using Ethereum for, you know, NFT purchasing, particularly when the market is hot, can be very costly. You've got to remember, this was back in the time, you know, 2021. So we're talking proof of work, Ethereum, so prior to the merge. And yeah, it was costly, and it was generally either slow or just didn't even work. And so Immutable X, although founded in 2018, they identified that problem in 2018. The idea was to create a platform that addressed the scalability issues of NFT purchasing on the Ethereum network, and I suppose generally in the trading, NFT trading world. So provide, well, so I'm looking at my notes here. So Immutable X, it is built off the Ethereum network. It is, I mean, when we get into the token, it is an ERC20 token, but it is a layer 2 protocol, which, as I just said, well, as they set out to aim to do, to solve the scalability issues of the NFTs, utilizing increased scalability on the Ethereum network to free up the space there. And they claim that they can do up to 9,000 transactions per second. Now, you know, we've been talking about transactions times quite a lot. And a lot of people throw out big numbers like that. And then when they go to run the test, it's, no, we can't do it yet, but we'll be able to do it in the future. I'll be honest, I don't know where they're at with the 9,000 transactions per second. That's what they're claiming that they can do. But they're also looking to solve these issues, particularly around the gas fees, by actually offering zero gas fees. And now that's kind of an asterisk next to it, and we'll come back to that at the moment. But the idea is that it's going to be zero gas fees, zero minting fees. So you can now, you know, create and generate, you know, multiple of NFTs, which then you can go on to sell, but you don't have to have any costs associated with minting those in the first place. And they reckon they can do all of this without compromising the security of the network. How do they go about doing that and what it is? Well, we'll cover that in a second. We'll just touch on sort of the website and where it effectively sits. And as I said, you know, this immediately does actually appeal to me in the sense that I've got a few NFTs, so I can understand the issues that anyone that is buying NFTs on the Ethereum network has gone, because I've experienced that myself. But it also is covering the gaming sector, because what Immutable X originally set out to do, and then what they have actually delivered, is something more than just solving any scalability issues through the protocol. Because actually they've created and built off this so that people, developers, can build NFT based games off the Immutable network using pretty sophisticated, easy to use APIs and toolkits. And so they claim, again, we'll go into this a little bit later, that you can build an entire NFT game in a matter of days just by using the APIs and the toolkits that they provide. Now, I'm not a developer. I've never built a game for my life, so I cannot confirm whether or not that's true, but this is certainly the narrative that they're pushing. So, this is also a protocol and a platform in which you can develop games within it. Obviously, when those games are built, you can then play them off this network. So again, it's reinforcing the requirement for Immutable. But if you don't want to build a game, but you just want to build NFTs, once you've built those, there's a marketplace which you can use to go on and sell your NFTs. And there's a bit of well, maybe not unique, but there is certainly a very interesting take on the marketplace that we will come back to. So how does it do it, and sort of where do we go from there? Let me try and see if I can get the right. Probably not. I was looking for. Maybe it's under the docs. I don't know. You have to bear with me a second. Let's hope so. Cross the fingers. I think this is it. So I'll be honest, I don't really understand a lot of this stuff in terms of the coding, and so I'm going to summarize it in very short order. If this is something that you're particularly interested in, you want to know how the system works and what they do to hit the claims they can, you're going to have to go into the documents here and have a read of it. But they utilize this thing called ZK rollups. And as I said, I don't necessarily understand what they do, but from what I do understand, when these transactions take place, rather than just tagging them individually, sending them to be processed individually, it effectively rolls them up, hence the name, batches them into hundreds of different transactions into one, and then it sends that. So I'm reading my notes to the left if you're wondering what I'm looking over, and then sends that to the blockchain for verification. So it reduces the computational power that's required for any of that. It also saves on the storage space that you would need to sort of pull all those up. And so, yes, in the layer 2, it's carrying all that information, but when it passes it down to the Ethereum network to make those transactions happen, it's in a much slicker, more condensed version. That's about as far as I can really get in terms of how it works. And I probably really butchered necessarily it is there. But for me, that's all I necessarily need to know. It seems to have a working product, which I can, in my very simplistic mind, kind of understand without having to interrogate whether or not it necessarily works. I will say at the moment I don't own any, and if I do look to buy, I'm going to have to look into this a lot more. I've mentioned about the APIs as well, and you can find some information. So those toolkits I'm talking about are these SDKs, and there's different coding that you can utilize on those. So the languages that are available are all here, but what is interesting is at the moment you can use the Unity engine with Immutable, and they are saying that there's an Unreal SDK, so for the Unreal engine, for you to be able to develop games from that. Unfortunately, when I looked at the roadmap, it didn't give a specific date for when that was going to be, but these are two pretty big engines that are used in the gaming world, so that's positive to see that they are identifying some of those. If we have a look at some of the things that we talked about, just making sure we got that. So how can I'm just trying to think where's the best bit to go to. Well, I'll have a look at the roadmap, because I think the roadmap to me certainly needs to be updated or made out a bit clear, because I'm not necessarily, they've got coming soon, but then we've got green ticks. I'm not sure, have they achieved these, or are they still coming soon? And is that just a bullet point that's not the best bullet point to have? So it feels like if you're taking the green ticks on Hart, then they've achieved everything they're setting out to. So we need to understand what is phase 2 of the roadmap. And if that's not the case, we need to know what of these they have identified. And as I say, Unity we know is there, but Unreal isn't. So why is it a tick? And, is it coming soon? Should it just be that? So I don't necessarily know what the roadmap is. I'm not saying that is a total red flag, but I do like to see a more up-to-date and used roadmap. So we can kind of make sure that they are ticking them off. They don't have to hit the exact day, but I just want to know that not only have they achieved goals in the past, but they're continually striving to sort of, make themselves better and make the platform better, etc. Going forward there. In terms of the ecosystem, as I mentioned, we've got the marketplace, we've got the games, we've also got the partners. I'm just going to touch on the partners quickly. And that's not the right one I wanted to do. Marketplace, I think it's. Yeah. So we'll start on marketplace then, because one of the big announcements they had was a partnership with GameStop. So some of you may know GameStop from Wall Street Bets, and back in the lockdown era, it was a brick and mortar video game shop, which a lot of big companies were like, it's going to die. And then a Reddit group decided to get together and go, we're not going to let this die. In fact, we're going to squeeze you. And they just popped up the price, kept on popping it. And these big firm, billion-dollar companies, I think some even went bellied up, but certainly felt some incredibly large losses. And, there's a documentary on Netflix all about it. There's books being written. It's quite an interesting thing. GameStop is the company. So it's still around, still sells video games. I don't know if they are still brick and mortar, if they've moved more to the online space, I'll be honest. But they made Immutable have made a big partnership agreement with them. And then we have a look at the marketplaces as well. So there's the Immutable marketplace, but you can also trade your NFTs on OKX, Rarible, which I've heard of, Nifty Gateway. So some big ones there. Now, what I said to you about the maybe not unique, but certainly an interesting factor within the marketplace is if you list your NFT, once you've created your NFT and you've minted it, if you list it for sale on any one of these marketplaces, it will automatically be listed on all of those marketplaces. So in real time, but it just gives you much greater visibility to the public to buy that. So, people aren't just having to hope to come across you because they happen to be on Rarible. If they're on OKX looking for NFTs, you're still going to have it there as well. So I think that's a really good factor that they brought in there. I don't know of many others that have. I'm sure there probably are. Like I say, I don't think it's necessarily unique, but that is good to see. In terms of the games that they've got here at the moment, there's quite a few that are being built and that you can play off these. I'll be honest, I've never played any of the ones while searching through, but in doing the research, about 3 of them did stick out as to ones that were, got some names towards them. I'm just scrolling up because I've just realized I've gone straight past them. So there's Illuvium, which is this one on the left-hand side in the middle. So this is a open world RPG type of game. It's like a AAA. It's going to be like crypto's first AAAs, and the graphics are incredibly good. Type of game. It's based off the Ethereum network. And yeah, this can be played off Immutable, and NFTs can be generated, which can be used within that. So, one of the bigger games out there, I think it might be in the top 100. But certainly when you go on, have a look at CoinMarketCap just in the gaming sector, Illuvium's very high. It's got a great following behind it. The other two that stood out were Guilds of Guardians and Gods Unchained. Again, I don't necessarily know too much about them. I did take, I think this Gods Unchained is kind of a little bit like Axie in the sense that you get these gaming cards or NFTs, and they've got certain characteristics within those, and then you play those cards in order against your opponents to try and weaken your opponents, and then you end up winning. I think that's kind of how Axie works, although I never played it. But yeah, they've already started building, so we know that not only is there a marketplace, which is, driving traffic, but there's actually also a network in which you can build from. In which you can play the games directly from, which again is very good. In terms of, where was it? Ecosystem. And if we go into, is it partners? So I didn't talk, I was going to talk about this, so I wanted to just talk about the main partnership being GameStop. But the other one that sort of catches my attention is Ultra. So Ultra is another one that I was interested in back in the last bull run. So Ultra, for those of you who don't know, is effectively a streaming, a Web3 streaming platform. That's what it's intending to be. So a bit like Twitch or even YouTube. Kick's another new one. There's a few that are necessarily out there. And so this partnership's already been developed, and you can see that once that gets up and running, then the games that are available in Immutable may well be available for people to stream on that platform. So it's good to see that they are sort of diversifying across, potentially brick and mortar, which will obviously have an online presence in GameStop, but also in sort of the Web3 side of how they're going to get the games and the NFTs out to the public. So yeah, I think again, that's a positive thing. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place because I haven't stuck to it. I talked to you about zero gas fees, and I said there's an asterisk in that. It's not necessarily zero gas fees. It's zero gas fees if you use the native network. If you're using the Ethereum network, then there is a fee, although they claim that it is a reduced fee. I've obviously not used it, so I can't confirm whether or not the gas fees are in line or below what you pay if you're just using flat out Ethereum. But I just wanted to clarify that you have to use a native network for that to be free. But they're also saying, minting. Oh, not that one. Not that one either. Let's get back to the front page. If you wanted to mint your tokens, your NFTs, you can do that for free. Again, zero fees on that if you use the native network. So that's good in the sense of, you create 5,000 NFTs. If you're using the native network to mint them, you don't have to pay any costs to get those out there for them people to buy. Or if someone was to buy, I'm just going to say it's an egg, for that to hatch, that's what the minting process is. There's no payment necessarily within that. It could make that more attractive for one, developers, but also two, for anyone that's looking to invest, because there's one less fee that you necessarily have to pay. So definitely something there to take a look at. I kind of put the 4 takeaways here, but I think I'll just summarize again. Ease of building NFT gaming projects. So talk about those APIs and the SDK toolkits. Make it quick and easy for developers to build and launch their NFTs. Claim it can be done within days. Fast and cheap transactions. So 9,000 transactions per second. Technically zero gas fees if you're using the native network. The worldwide NFT trading. So you put it on one market, it gets traded on multiple marketplaces. Again, I think that's quite a decent thing to have there. One thing that people talked about when I was researching this, and I don't know whether or not I think this is worth kudos that other people were giving it, was this ease of payments. So when you do connect a wallet, you could just pay direct through your credit card if you want to. I think that's fairly common. I think if you do that, you do normally get stiffed quite aggressively. So it's not something that I would encourage people to do. But in theory, I suppose you don't have to waste any of your crypto assets. If you want to just pay on credit card for whatever it is you're looking at, then there's that option there. I don't think that's the be all and end all, but so many people and articles were just talking about that as a almost a unique selling point, which I don't think necessarily it is. If we have a look at there is the white paper here. You can have a look at it. This is it downloaded here. Now this is version 1.2, which actually only came out a couple of months ago. So because I hadn't looked at it beforehand, I don't necessarily know what's changed, but it's in the format of white papers that I like, in the sense that everything's labeled out and I can just get straight to it, and it will explain exactly how the ZK rollups work, how the APIs work, how it integrates the Starks into the different layers between Immutable and Ethereum to allow all those transactions to be rolled up, etc., etc. That's basically all I can remember from it. But it also gives us a breakdown of the tokenomics, which is what we wanted to see. So there's 2 billion IMX tokens that would be available. I'm gonna have to zoom in here. You're never going to see that. So we got almost 52% to ecosystem development, 25% to project development. There was nearly 14% in private sales and about 5.5% in public sales. And then the foundation reserves. It gives a description which each of those. And yeah, that's what they are. This isn't necessarily the breakdown, and then the unlocks. And so the private sales couldn't do anything for a year, and then there was a 2.5 year unlock period, which is every 28 days. Public sale was just locked for 6 months, then after that, it's the release of 28 days. The second set of public sales, which was 3 months. Project developers have to hold it for 4 years. Daily rewards, so that'll be for your staking, which we've not necessarily talked about, but that's effectively what the vast majority of this ecosystem development is. And there's grants and reserve foundation. This is the supply schedule and how it's released. And so you can see some of these don't kick in for that first year because there's that lockup period, and then off they go. And that's where you get first, and then you get 4 years after that. Again, you can have a read of that as you see fit. If you go on to token unlocks, though, Immutable X is on there, and it ties in with a release around about every month, 28 days. So we've got the next one's coming up in 10 days time, and it's going to be around about 1.5% of the circulating supply, and at current prices around about $14 million worth is going to be dropped within there. But this is where it gives you the breakdown. And again, I can't hold the cursor over there because it just stays on it. Maybe I can put it up there. You can kind of see that initial cliff, and then the other ones are kicking in whilst we've had some right from the beginning. We've already had all of the foundation ones, and the project developers ones have all gone. And we're currently just working through the orange, the blue, and it's public sales that are sold. Project development are where those are going. So again, it's a useful website. I've clicked on this one many times. You can just see a better breakdown of how things are happening. My dog's pacing behind me, probably because she needs letting out to the toilet, but she's gonna have to last another hour. Hopefully she doesn't do number 2 and it stinks. Let's have a look at the rest of the tokenomics. So it's currently around about 80 cents at the moment. It's ranked at 47 on CoinMarketCap. As I said, the circulating supply is just over 1 billion. It's around about 54%. It's currently a circulating supply of 2 billion that would be out there. And we've got until around about 2026 until that comes about. If we have a look at the chart though, now this looks pretty bad at first face value. But if I was to tell you that this actually launched in November 2021, you can see why the price skyrockets so high, and actually all it's ever really known is a bear market. But it has pretty much been a stable coin, for the last sort of, 15 months, ranging anywhere from around about $1 down to the lows of about 40 cents actually down here. But recently this year, or this last 3 months, we've been seeing it sort of in and around 60 to about 80 cents. So it's available on a lot of sexes and a lot of dexes. All the big ones are there. So Binance, Coinbase, Qcoin, Uniswap, Kraken. Let's just click some of the other ones. Bybit, Gate.io, Huobi, BitGet, Crypto.com. You get the point. It's pretty widely available. In terms of socials, all the socials are absolutely fine. It's got the level of support that you'd expect. The one extra caveat I just put to this, you can read it as a good thing or a bad thing. It's completely up to you. It has very strong support from some very large gaming and NFT specific crypto influencers. So the likes of Alex Becker and Elio Trades, very positive about Immutable. You can read into those as you like, whether or not you think they're shillers and pump and dumpers or not, but they certainly have an army of followers behind them. So if there's something you're looking to get into, I would start to at least pay attention to what they're saying about it, maybe just in case they've got any indication they want to sell. Not because they're necessarily dumping, but you just think about it. If they've got millions of followers, and both those accounts do have millions of followers, those followers believe in them. If they decide to sell and everyone else decides to sell, then it could cause a problem. But on the converse side, if they get super bullish again and really hype it up, it can drive the price up. So certainly something to bear in mind there. The benefits I kind of gone through. Drawbacks, I think there's two that I kind of found initially, or one that I thought of and one that I found. Back when that GameStop announcement was made, which was probably about a year ago now, off the back of it, price I think it rallied like 40%. I think it is around about here. It happened. And then, within 48 hours of the announcement, some of the investors, dumped $40 million worth of the tokens onto the market. So I say insiders because did they have that knowledge beforehand, drove the price up, and then immediately went to sort of dump on it? I think that created a bit of bad taste in very early days, in a time when the markets were already going down and people were starting to get, a bit disillusioned about where it's going. To then have people, investors that are supposedly see the longevity of this project and really want to get behind it, just suddenly dump a rather large amount on the market. There was definitely comments out there of damaged trust and what have you. So it could just be a sheer coincidence of timings of unlock periods and everything else. We know that crypto Twitter doesn't necessarily look into these things in much detail. So, but there's that potential that's what had happened. And again, that kind of goes back to the big social followings that it has as well. One of these big followers that has a big bag decides that they want to dump immediately after a partnership announcement. You could be holding that the wrong side of it. But likewise, you could get in and then a big partnership is announced and the market rises. The other thing is more just me thinking out loud than anything else. And I suppose this is a layer 2 that is built off the Ethereum network that is trying to solve scalability issues that Ethereum had back when it was proof of work. Well, obviously, we've moved across to proof of stake now. And let's be clear, that move hasn't instantly and overnight cured any of the issues that Ethereum was previously facing. But the question I suppose I have is, if Ethereum delivers on what it's supposed to do, and it gets some of these EIPs going and actually deals with the scalability, deals with the gas fees, etc., does this then make Immutable partially irrelevant? If it's just as easy now to trade just using Ethereum network directly, why do people then necessarily need to go to Immutable to go and do that? Now, I talked about before that what Immutable set out to be and what it's now become, not two different things, but it's certainly grown other arms to it. And maybe it's done that because it knew that Ethereum was moving to proof of stake. So at some stage they may get this under control. So hopefully it is going to create an identity of itself. But at the moment, its big selling point is tackling the scalability issues caused by the Ethereum network. So a question is relevancy if Ethereum actually gets that under wraps. Where do I feel about this token? I'll be honest. Oh, wait a second. I had the chart a second ago. Beautiful. There we go. So this is kind of what it looks like over the last. Let's just put it on the 3-day chart, shall we? So this is just the Binance chart. So although it did launch in November 2021, Binance obviously didn't list it till end of January. So you can't see all of the data there, but you can kind of see it has dropped. In terms of sort of price levels, for me, I'd certainly be looking at that at the moment. I mean, obviously it's bottom down here. It's an area where you'd want to be looking at. But I think it's broken through. It's bouncing off this one at the moment. This is what, about a month's worth of data. This is a 3-day candle, 3-day chart. Remember. But yeah, still got a bit of work to do, a way to go. But it's just building that stability. It's nothing necessarily to be too alarmed about. I should have said its all-time high at launch was around about $9. So around about 11x from where the price is at the moment, 11.5, 12x where the price is at the moment, just to get back to all-time highs. No guarantee that it's necessarily going to get there because the hype around this, when it launched in the bull market, may have artificially inflated that price anyway. But it's under $1 at the moment. It's got a genuine use case. It's got an ecosystem. It's been built upon. It's got multiple different facets to it. Kind of ticks a lot of the boxes for me. And it's in a sector that I'm interested in. So I'm not buying it. I am interested in it. It's going to remain in here while I do some more research on it. But if I'm happy with what I see in a couple of weeks' time and price feels about right, then I'll certainly be willing to put a small part of my portfolio in there, no more than around about 2%. But it will take one of those coveted 15 slots that I'm trying to limit everything down to. So yeah, I think this is it's definitely got something I like. I think there is a real world problem that it is solving, and it's also looking to sort of like build for the future from where that's going. So definitely one for me, I think. Right, that's where we are with that one. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions on that, but I'll give you a second to put any down before I move on. Okay, let's just minimize that there. There we go. Let's get rid of some of this now, shall we? Just while people are thinking of questions, I'll just try and get rid of a few of these. Doesn't look like there's anything. Oops, what's happened there? I can hear the fan on my PC going crazy. Okay. So let's start having a look at some price. Let's have a look at where Bitcoin is and everything else. I think the first thing we should probably start to talk about was the end of July yesterday. So we had a monthly close. On where we're at, and before we actually have a look at what the price it closed at and how that will play out, I think it's interesting. We don't touch on this every month, but we can kind of see where things are done. And actually, July has normally been recently a pretty good month for Bitcoin, but not this month. A 4% drop on where we're at. So not exactly the world's biggest drop, but it has shown a bit of a downtrend where previously July's have been relatively strong. Now we're coming into two normally incredibly bad months. I mean, September has never. September has in the last 6 months not recorded 6 years. A positive return. No guarantee that's going to be the case again. And October has not fared very well recently either. Now, in the early days, it had some great returns, but probably in the last 6 years, again, it's been a bit of a meh month, and so we may, normally we rely on July to give us a bit of a stopgap going through there, but what we're actually necessarily seeing is that July didn't perform too well, and we're going into probably, arguably, two of the most difficult months. Certainly the most difficult set of months of the whole year. And so does that tie in with where retail is? And we'll talk about the S&P a little bit later on. We'll obviously have to wait and see. But it's just something to bear in mind of some of the drops we've had. And if you look at September, I don't know what that's going to be. Let's just quickly add it up. 18, 19, 34, 37. Great. 37 divided by 5. Is 5.5. So we're averaging a 5.5% drop in September over the last 5 years. So yeah, we should just have to bear that in mind of where we may end up. Now it's only the 1st of October, so we've got all of October to worry about before we can talk about September. But you can see from this that generally August is kind of, take it or leave it. September, not particularly good. October, however, is a positive one. So maybe just a couple of months, a little bit of pain before we head into the Halloween effect and take us into the Christmas period. So this is the chart that I've just been using a couple of weeks now, and nothing's really changed necessarily on that. I still got this big trend line. This is the weekly chart here. We dipped into that circle this week. Matter of fact, that was today's drop down to 28.5. We haven't bounced off this line yet. Maybe another week until we do, but if this line is going to be what it is, then 28k is the level we'll probably end up talking about. And as I say, a break and a close below that, we could be looking at a further drop and a bit more of a period down below there. Now I'm just going to delete this so we can actually see where I think it's here, but let's just delete that and just see. Yeah, the 21 EMA is kind of here. Next week, I don't think it's going to move much, 28,000 maybe. So, that kind of still ties in. But, if we just have a few static weeks, we're just going to be running into that at this price here. But that's still what I'm looking at. These boxes here, I actually haven't updated them. This was last week's. I think it's 1 year liquidation levels from High Block, which we'll have a look at a little bit later on. But these are sort of the bigger targets that we're currently looking at. Tell you what, let's just move on to here. Oops. These are for. I'll zoom in a second. So how did we close? I mean, we basically just re-attacked that 29k level, and that's where it closed. And so for me, that's what the circles were, isn't it? From a monthly point of view, 23 or 37. I'm not saying it gets to that in those months, but they're the two big areas that we're looking at, or it's going to hug 29. I mean, it's day one at the moment, so there's no point in even considering what that's looking like on the monthly candle. Daily might be a different thing, and it's definitely something worth to have a look at. And we can kind of see, I say this every week, not sure where we're still sitting at the moment, whether or not we're in a whether or not we're in a rise 3, or we've finished the rise 3 and we're just in some sort of weird M formation moving now towards the start of the drop. We'd have to wait and see. As I said, a couple of things that kind of put me off that at the moment is this just still feels like it's a potential consolidation period, similar to levels we've had there and there. Sorry, I thought I had my marker on there and there, and then a little bit more of a leg up. That kind of feels like where we're at. But as I mentioned last week, my concern has to still be that since 14th of July, we've been below this 10 EMA. And then since the 18th of July, also below the 20 EMA. And then pretty much since the 24th of July, we have not been able to close above the 50 EMA. We are getting pushed down, suppressed down. And it kind of feels like, are we giving ourselves up for another leg down? And even today, yes, we had that big drop down. It's climbed all the way back up over the last hour or two. But it cannot seem to get above that 50. It's got to wait for it to close, obviously, 4 hours to go. But the 50, the 20, and the 10, they're all converging on each other at the moment. And is that just going to be pushing us back down in the short term? And then we've got this, this vector candle still unrecovered at the moment. Could we be looking at getting down to sort of 27.5? Kind of tying back in with some of the other information we're going to look at, not on that chart. So yeah, that's certainly what I would be looking at. Now, a few hours ago, before this climb back up, I was looking at the 4 hour and I was wondering whether or not, we were having a potential drop 3 on the 4 hour. So we had that first drop, second drop, and then there was a third drop, so D1, D2, and D3. And there's definitely clear arguments to be had on that bit. The one thing that just runs in my back of my mind is how quickly that potentially has happened. I suppose it's not actually that quick. Sorry, I thought this was only a week ago, but it's actually 2 weeks ago. Still, on the 4 hour chart, it's not too bad. We are starting to have this move back up, but again on the 4 hour, look where we've been stopped. And all that's actually happened is we had that vector candle there, and then we've just recovered it back. And it's slowing. That, if it was green, that would mean it was 200%, or greater than 200% of volume. Blue is greater than 150%. So it's slowing down. It's stopped at the 50. We just need to now just understand what's going to happen and where that's taking us. But there's still potential that this was a drop 3. And if that is the case, then, when we look at this, we could be looking at the start of some form of W formation. So maybe a retest back down to around about 28,800. And then we start building that way back up. Take that down onto a 1 hour chart. I've just removed that final drop 3 bit there. Actually, on the 1 hour, it does feel a bit like a W there. I mean, look like one, not feel. So again, maybe we are experiencing a W. Too early to tell if we're in a consolidation period yet. But I'd want to see it break 29.5. Clear this initial high of the day and the high of the day. And then, we'd be looking. And I mean, ultimately, when you move up here, we got levels back again at 30,000. And so, we could quite conceivably be heading that way. I'm not going to bother taking it down onto the nosebleeds. I think they're just going to say the same picture, but in a different thing. So from a market maker point of view, that's certainly what I'm looking at. Where that's going. In terms of, I'm going to have to refresh this. It looks a bit old. Oh, sorry. Let's do the month. Let's put BitMEX and Bybit on there. Just run it. think it's automatically running, but we'll do it anyway. So let's just zoom in what we can see. Should give us enough. So yeah, so these drops here that we're talking about, you know, took out lovely $16 billion worth of liquidation levels, and then it came for another second buy, took another about 5 and a bit from there. But since then, it's been eating that up. I don't think there's any real pull either way in terms of, you know, things that are standing out. I think they're fairly balanced. I don't know what the delta is. I got the wrong chart open to have a look at the delta. Don't know if anyone in the comments happens to have a chart at the moment which says where the delta is for either of those, but where the balance between the longs and the shorts necessarily are. But you know, 28k, you know, building up down towards that is probably what, you know, 35, 40 billion there, and then building up to 30k. Well, maybe you've got to go actually to 31. So seems like the path of least resistance, especially with what's already been cleared out, is there. You know, this rise up, but we shall just have to wait and see on that. But so look, 28. Let's just go at 28 flat, and then really anything of interest 32. Let's move this back up to the. Let's go to the 4 hour. Nothing on the 4 hour. Okay, we'll go back to the hour. So okay, 28 flat. It's kind of around about here, it's in between, and then you know, again we're sort of just below. There's no real. I mean, there's a little bit where we currently are at the moment, which hasn't been recovered from. Wow, all the way back here actually. So 20th of June, still. You know, it tried to take a bit, but didn't take it all. So yeah. Right, let's have a look at some of these other ways we can have a look at the metrics on these. So let's get onto a clean chart, shall we? I mean, potential lovely low test we've got there. Certainly, and I don't have volume on this. Let's just put volume. Oops, not that one. That's the one I wanted. Let's get rid of this. You know, decent amount of volume and pushing that back up. So, you know, this is a daily chart. Been dropping over the days and then see that sharp uptick. So, you know, there were people around about 28.5 that wanted to defend that level and build that back up. And sort of what I'm just going to get rid of the volume because I don't really care for it now. But what I said at the beginning of the talk, that yeah, it looks like we've had a bit of a, you know, an interesting time over the last hour or two. But take it back onto the daily, and you know, yeah, okay, we did break 29,000, but we're back above it again. As a matter of fact, we've closed above 29,100 for the last 8 days. So, you know, there's necessarily no difference here. It's been brought back up. But again, we are getting pressed here. So things are getting squeezed. We've already had a look at where we are on the 50. We're closing below that. We're closed below the 10 and the 20, 21. So, yeah, things certainly seem to be sort of suppressing us down there now. What that could, you know, lead to is we're getting squeezed. These bars are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Generally, it does lead to, you know, a release of a spring of some sort. Which direction it's going to go, we don't necessarily know at the moment. My concern is just the fact that we have been closing under the 50, and so there's potentially a drop down. And I don't have the vector candles open at the moment, but you know, 26.5 kind of area is where I think, you know, we could see some sort of action in and around here. Kind of ties in with sort of a lot of these wicks and bodies built down there, and then obviously failing that, we go all the way down to 25,000. Pull this one across, and so yeah, you know, they'd necessarily be the two zones. Now, if we throw on a fib level from that as well, have a look top to bottom. I mean, it hits 26,600. Spot on within that zone there. We've got to get through quite a lot of these, but you can kind of see the 618 has been holding us this whole time. But it's just whether or not it's weakening as we're holding it. And if it does, there's not too much the 0.5 was perfectly where that break in the day was there, but there's not too much that's necessarily holding us from that. So those two zones, I think, logical targets if we're going to head south. If we're going to head back up, I mean, 31,100's the level we've really got to go for. That's getting us close to the 30,200 zone we talked about here. And then obviously, if we want to see an actual proper move upwards, until we beat 31,500 and closed above it, we're just still within that range. And although this is the fib level, I'll get rid of the fib in a second after I've drawn it. But last month and a half, this has been the range. And if you want to throw potential level in there, maybe you put that in there as well. And that's been it's not quite halfway, but it's like a mini range within that. The next move, if we're just going to continue moving sideways, potentially we do see sort of a move up to that 31,200 before coming back down, or just continue moving across. Sorry that it's a bit on the fence, but to be fair, price action, apart from a move down this morning, which is now being recovered, has been pretty dull for the last 2 or 3 of these talks. And that's just unfortunately where we find ourselves. Ethereum is, a very similar position. Whether or not you want to do the fib. I mean, this one is below the 618. It's come down to the 5, but it's been bought back up like Ethereum has today. Sorry, like Bitcoin has today. I'm just trying to see if there's any. Not really. I was wondering if that was a trend line worth it, but not really anything necessarily there. But again, this last month, we've just been ranging. We're at the low of where our range has been. And then whether or not you want to take it at 1920 or all the way up to 2000. But if price is going to stay around here, we're at the bottom of a range which it's been bouncing off many times before. Is this the direction next? I don't know. Having a look at some of these other ones. I think I might have drawn on some of these, but I think potentially there are some trend lines here. I was messing around with these, like taking trend lines all the way back and having a look, but so this is Bifrost, very wicky. Although the bodies are decent length, the wicks are as well, but it's going body to body. Has it broken through? Is this now Koboing off? Are we heading down? Whole one kind of similar. I mean, if I was to do one, actually, I'd probably do it there. Resistance, support, broke through, Kobo back. It's falling away now. Maybe that's where it's looking at. Are we then heading down? Glimmer. We're nearly at all-time lows. Just wasn't that long ago, but drawing this in the other way, it's really struggling to get above this one. Unlocks happen every month as well, driving the price down. So I think we're going to see new price discovery sub 20 cents on that. As I said to you last week, Glimmer's probably my biggest risk in just my exposure to it. It's something that I do believe in. I don't think the coin's dead. I think it could have done better tokenomics in terms of the release schedule. That's not its fault. It's down to parachain auctions and how that's done, and the rewards for people tying that in. We're getting towards the end of that there. I do think the actual protocol and what it does, XCM and everything else that goes with it, I think it'll do well. But at the moment, I'm not buying any more. I'm waiting until the end of the year, or certainly when we get closer to the end of the release lockup periods, and then I'll just look to try and pick up some more there. But that's still my biggest risk. Link. So Link's had that move up. It's come back down. So again, we sold around about, I think it was 826. I set it at 7, so it hasn't hit that yet. But yeah, it's come back down. Bit of a dead cat bounce there. It's working its way. And this just seemed too fake a move for the rest of the market. But again, look at that. From the bottom to the top, today's price action straight down to the 618. Huge buying pressure back up. But again, closing, if we don't close above the 786, is this then just going to fall, reattack, and then look some of these other levels? So again, that's what I'm looking at. Matic. Let's have a look. Maybe not. I was thinking, is there some sort of support level? Has it just broken through that one? I mean, maybe. Let me check it. Link is still pushing lower highs. Why does it have a love heart over what you've written? Oh, there we go. That came from the protocol release. Yeah, so they launched CCIP, which was cross-chain interoperability protocol. This is what this pump, it was this one here. So there was a big conference, probably that was a, buy the rumor, sell the news type thing. That was announced, and then this is where it's starting to come back. So yeah, it definitely has made a lower high there, that dead cat bounce. But I just want to see, if it starts to build its way back up and clears that, then maybe I need to consider rebuying in. But I'm happy just to sit on it at the moment. I only sold 50% of my link, so hedging my bets. But I think I can get back in at 7. Maybe look to actually sort of 674, kind of that 0.5 level. Near, yeah, again, looking probably a bit weak here. So, just from trend lines alone, it's broken through, potentially Kobo'd. Is it Kobo'ing off again? Are we going to have a look? Or have I drawn it wrong? And that's the line. But at the moment, I've got a decent sized bag. Near, I think it's probably in the red. I think my average is probably about 150. So maybe there's an opportunity to buy a little bit more if it drops down and bring in that order price. But at the moment, I'm just happy to sit where it is. OKB, just fairly static. I mean, so I'm doing kind of a bit more in trend lines today, just try and spice it up a little bit. I think kind of feel sometimes people get a bit bored of me talking about fibs each time, and that's probably the best I can draw from that over the last couple of months. So it's definitely pinching, and we know these bars are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So whether or not where it goes, is that broken through, or have I just drawn it poorly? Sure, if I did it on the 4 hour, in fact, maybe I should. If we're doing stuff like this, probably should look at the 4 hour. Just try and get a bit of a cleaner picture, because yeah, you can bring that down. You tighten that one up there, and then you kind of call into question, has it already broken it? I mean, actually, does that need to go something like that? Anyway, put it back onto the daily for now. Bijan's Twitter, if Polkadot gets hype in the next bull run, then Glimmer will do well. Yeah, I think so. I think, unfortunately, Glimmer success is probably tied very much to Polkadot. And in terms of the balance of my portfolio, I kind of need to bear that in mind as well. With Glimmer, Bifrost, and Polkadot, there's quite a lot riding on Polkadot there. So, yeah, I just need to think about that. Quant, I know it's dropped now, but Quant had a bit of an interesting run a couple of days ago. But, interesting relative to the rest of the market, but not really done much in terms of where it can move. And oops, I thought that was a vertical line, horizontal line even. Kind of just hit that shelf and then just immediately came back down. So whether or not we're forming a range around between 100 and 114, 115, then yeah, I don't know about Market Mobsters if you dislike Chainlink or not. I mean, a lot of the tokens we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, I've mentioned that they're using the oracles from Chainlink to get that real-time data. And it's good to see that not only does it have a use case, but actually other cryptocurrency projects are utilizing that. I think it shows that even in a bear market, it's usable, which is typically a good sign for things going into a bull market. So yeah, I'm positive about that. Rose again. Oops, that's not. We don't need a ray. We need a trend line. There's definitely something there. Seems to have lost some sort of support in and around that level. Whether you do it from that one or this one. So yeah, everything's got a bit of a low test candle, but a lot of these are broken key support, so they've got to get back up that and then beyond that. Otherwise, it could just be this Kobo and come back down. The one that has been done well, you can't deny it, has been Casper. It's bucked the trend, still up. Yeah, it's had some drawdowns, but it's recovered nicely. Still not taking out this all-time high at the moment. But yeah, it's looking good. Whether or not we've got a double bottom formation from this drop down, or we're still looking at a potential double top and then an overall major double top, we'll have to wait and see. We've talked about potential cup and handles people have mentioned in Discord as well. So I don't know where they're going to draw it, maybe like that. And then are we getting like a really tiny handle coming from it? Potentially. Shouldn't laugh there. Is that going to be a little handle there? I mean, that's going to be, really are going to have to use your pinky for that one there, but we shall wait and see. Let's just put a little question mark by that. But if it is a cup and handle, it typically is a bullish sign there. So but we get above, we can close above, let's just say 4 cents, $4.1. No, that's not right. 4 cents in one, yeah. This one here. God, I can't speak. Then it's price discovery territory. Who knows where we could potentially go? If that is going to be the case, we might have to throw out a fib extension and have a look. So let's just take it from this bottom here to this top here. I mean, are we going to be looking at sort of 4.75 or 5.5 cents maybe before then some sort of turnaround? Sorry, is there a chance for you, Casper, that the miners dump and it loses the hype? Yeah, so I think Simon was right. So he started off by saying that there's a concern that ASIC miners are going to come on board and they're going to look to buy it and then sell it. Sorry, mine it and then sell it. And then I think he kind of changed his tune. He didn't have such a worry. I think at the moment you still need to take that into consideration. So these rigs, 25k each. They don't have a huge amount of life in them, in the sense that more up-to-date ones will come out, which will effectively make those ones obsolete, because the computational power of the newer ones, they'll just win the algorithm race quicker. So these guys, they're not diehard Casper fans, they're not necessarily even diehard Bitcoin fans. They're just going to put their mining power to whatever can make them the most money as quick as possible, and the first thing they'll look to do is recover their costs. Now I've seen forums suggesting that you're making $2,500 a day on these. So it's only 10 days worth of mining and selling to sort of break even if those figures stand up. So maybe we do see when they come online this month, next month, we do see them. Well, let's start that again. If that is going to be the case, what I would imagine would happen, with my clandestine hat on, is a real hype drive to drive the price up. And they won't want to sell it at the price they mine. Try and drive it up, and then a huge drop in prices. They then go to sell, at bulk, and just try and collect as much of that in as they can. But let's ignore that at the moment. That's fundamental stuff. We don't know where that is from a technical point of view. It's doing well. It's outperforming Bitcoin today. It's outperforming the vast majority of altcoins out there, and it has been doing so for a number of days, if not weeks. So give it credit where it's due. Sentiment on crypto Twitter and influence is definitely picking up. So whether this is hype that's driving it, we don't know. It's always worrying to get into that. I look at things like the movement it's already had, but if it closes above 4 cents and it looks like it's building, then I might just have to bite the bullet. If I want to get involved in it, just have to buy it then, and then just think strategically. But because I'm not involved, I've got time on my hand, so I can just wait and see how the rest of this year plays out. If need be. But yeah, I'll leave that one here. So there's a few more coming. Okay, problem with all proof of work alt tokens is that they get wrecked when the miners go live. Yeah, I mean, I talked about this one before. So Raven. So Raven's a good example of this. This was one I mined quite extensively. And look what happened. Joe Blogg's mining it like I was. Mine. Big boys come in, drive the price up, dump it back down. And these are weekly candles. I tell you, this was a hell of a ride. Yeah, I mean, I was mining this when it was like less than a cent. It got to 4 cents. I was ecstatic. 7 cents, couldn't believe it. I sold way before it got to the top. But at one stage, it got up to 30 cents. I had hundreds of thousands, if not millions of these tokens. It was unbelievable. But it quickly reversed, and it didn't last long. And this is, I mean, I'm not saying it's the same as Casper, but this is something that started off as a community-driven mining project that the big boys got on the back of, and got shilled quite a bit. So doesn't mean that's going to happen, but this was my experience of me personally mining token. I got out on the right side of it. I mean, I didn't get the best side of it, but I got out on the right side of it, so I can't necessarily complain. And this was listed on dog shit exchanges. Binance picked it up around about here and then dump. So yeah. Why would someone build on Casper instead of ETH, Polkadot, Avalanche, Solana, Cardano? I tell you what, Bijan, I mean, I have to pick you up here because it's Ethereum, it's Polkadot, it's Avalanche, Solana. You got right. It's Cardano, but I knew what you meant. Seems that developers are spoiled for choice. They are, and I've mentioned this and other things that we've linked. Has said, they're going into the layer 1 sector. That is a incredibly busy marketplace to disrupt. So yeah, they're coming out with all the noise at the moment. It's proof of work. You got the security of proof of work. We got the scalability with the transaction speeds and everything else. Still got to prove those transaction speeds, but beta testing's getting there. And if they move over to this Rust and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not necessarily following it day to day. I'm just wait for the trading pubs and just garner what information I can from time. But they've still got to disrupt it, and they've still got to encourage people to build off it. And that goes back to my concern. There isn't anything being built off it at the moment. So does it justify the price hike? It's already had a 16,000% increase this last 12 months. Does it deserve any more? But if it can do those, it does have good technology. Whether or not people buy into technology from a retail point of view, yeah, but if they can convince developers that their technology is sound and it's worth investing in, then it has a chance. But it still has to disrupt them, and it kind of has to target new projects. Like a lot of the existing ones, the big ones out there, they've laid their bed. They've made the decision to be built on whichever one they have. Now, yes, there are protocols out there that can help them build on other ones, but we don't know whether or not Casper's going to go that way. So we're really looking for innovation. We're looking for new projects to come along, and then those new projects need to have the traction and the sustainability to bring it forward. So definitely something to consider. Adams put, Casper has been crowdfunding for an exchange listing, which I think ends tomorrow, and I think they hit the target, which will be interesting to see what happens. People are speculating to Bybit. I have, I saw that comment from Simon. Unfortunately, I don't get to write on the Telegram. Here's my 2 cents on that. I got a feeling that's a red herring, because you think about it. There was a big deal made that they needed $50,000 to get a listing on MEXC. MEXC is arguably, at best, a tier 2 exchange, at best. Okay, it's got some very bad write-ups on it. It's unheard of, etc., etc. Now they only need $31,000 to get a tier 1 listing. That one price scale doesn't seem right, but okay, fair enough, maybe it is. But 2, I thought Simon showed us a wallet which has the Rust fund, because we talked about, did the developers have any funds? And there was 800 million Casper tokens within there, probably hundreds of millions dollars worth, or tens of millions of dollars worth of Casper tokens. Why can't they get the 31,000 from that? I mean, even if it was 10 million, that'd be 0.31% of that entire fund they need for a listing. So when it says tier 1 at 31k, I don't even think that's Bybit. That might be like, well, I was going to say Gate. It's already on Gate, isn't it? Hobe or BitMEX or something like that. I don't know. 31 seems particularly low. Why they can't get it? I don't actively look at other tokens, whether or not that they're getting listed as, being something an exciting feature. So it doesn't necessarily bother me either way. I do think if it is going to be a big one, that's going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Definitely something you needed. So anyway, Hoube, I can't even pronounce it, but yeah, that could well be it. I don't think we're going to be talking about the likes of Qcoin, maybe, but I think that's cheap. Or MEXC is expensive, should I say then? Oh, it's on Qcoin. Apologies, it is on Qcoin. But I don't see it being a Binance, and I think Bybit is a decent tier 1. I think I did see that you can long and short Casper on KuCoin. So if anyone that's interested in giving their money back to the market, that's certainly a place to have a look at that. But yeah, that's where I am with it. Let's just have a look at Total 3. Total 3 is market cap minus BTC and Ethereum. Kind of see, you know, it's just looking at the chart, it's pretty much flat today, whereas total market cap, which includes Bitcoin and Ethereum, is down 0.25%. It's kind of would assume that Bitcoin dominance is down, but actually Bitcoin dominance is up slightly. So the biggest hit must be in Ethereum within that. But going back to Total 3, I still stand by the levels I wish I'd kept and obviously not drawn out, but we're just ranging. Yeah, you can definitely argue that in the last 18 months, you know, what real money has been brought in, if this is where we've sat. You know, we've just recycled it. It feels like, yeah, okay, some people might have taken some profits, and it just feels like it's been recycled back in, and they've taken some profits again. Now maybe we're recycling it back in. You know, it doesn't feel like it's new money. Anything is just old money, because we seem to be hitting the same levels either way. But we are right in the middle of this, you know, of this zone. And so I'm not bullish, and I'm not necessarily bearish on this. This is just, it is what it is. We lose 290 billion. And I think, yeah, alts are going to really struggle. And then ultimately, if we get into above 400 billion and it closes above it, maybe we have a little mini alt season. Similar to what we had last summer. You remember Ethereum driving everything else up for the rumors of the merge and everything. Maybe we get that again. But yeah, that's kind of where I sit with that. I think that's kind of me, to be honest, unless anyone's got any questions they want to ask. We kind of covered a lot today, went through quite a lot of news, so apologies for all of that. But if anyone's got anything else, feel free to drop something in there. Just to let you know, I am away for the next couple of weeks, another holiday. But I've got a video lined up for next week, which hopefully most of you will be interested in. It's certainly interesting for me to make. It's on Polkadot 2.0. So yeah, definitely check that out. That will go live at this time next week. And then the week after, try and do something a little bit different. I'm going to do a live stream, but it's basically going to be an AMA. So ask me anything, whether it be about my particular crypto journey or what I believe in a particular token. But it's going to be much more of a question and answer type thing rather than me doing the research beforehand. It's just going to be me kind of chatting. So, you know, why I joined RT, or what were the biggest failings I've experienced in, you know, sort of trades that I've made, whether that be in RT or outside of it, projects that I used to follow, you know, why I've given up on them, whatever it is that tickles your boat or you want to ask a question about. Feel free to. I'll sit down, beer in hand, and we'll go through some of those, and just, you know, a bit of a different take. And I'll try and be as brutally honest as I possibly can. So yeah, doesn't look like anyone's got any question to ask or anything like that. So I suppose it just have to say we've got the call tomorrow now instead of Thursday. So it's 2:00 tomorrow. Invite will go out for that. There's not a call on Thursday. Other than that, guys, thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you all on Discord. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a message. What I would also say is, sorry, in case everyone's just shut off. So a new member reached out to me in DMs and asked if I could jump on the RT voice channel. We just had a chat over things. Ended up a couple of people joined the call. I've got Discord open 24/7. So if you have a particular question you just want to ask me there and then, just drop me a DM. I'll be happy to just jump into the voice channel. We can have a bit of a chat. It ended up turning into about an hour-long chat instead of 15 minutes, but it passed the time. So, yeah, if that floats your boat, then just reach out. But other than that, have a great evening, guys. Enjoy the rest of it, and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers out.